Hey.
Alright y'all, so I have been dying to talk about the Toronto Raptors for a hot minute now. I'm very excited to get this video out there for you guys, because it's no secret that the Raptors have made a whole bunch of very questionable moves in recent NBA history. They had the whole Kyle Lowry debacle where they decided to hold on to him past the trade deadline last season despite being one of the worst teams in the league record-wise. And as a result for that, they ended up doing a sign and trade for him this offseason, and they ended up only getting Goran Dragic and Precious Achiuwa back in the deal. They got 0 picks out of it either. Overall, just a much lesser haul than they would have gotten had they just made the deal at the trade deadline or at some point before that last season. Outside of that, they also decided to give Trent Jr. a 3-year, $58 million deal this offseason. Now, I understand why they did it. It was a dry free agency. There wasn't a whole lot of outside talent that they could have brought in to replace him, so I understand giving him the money, but at the same time, I'm just not a huge fan of paying Trent Jr. that much. Then come draft night, they shocked a whole lot of NBA fans and Raptors fans especially when they selected Scottie Barnes at the 4th pick instead of Jalen Suggs, who was projected to go to the Raptors at the 4th pick by a whole lot of people. And I by no means claim to be any sort of a draft expert. I spend very little time each year looking at draft prospects and all that stuff. I usually just save that for the wonderful people that I follow on Twitter. But as of now, I am buying up as much Scottie Barnes stock as I can because it seems like there's a whole lot of people selling it, and I just don't see why. Obviously, when it comes to the Suggs versus Barnes debate, we'll probably have to wait a few years to see what actually ends up happening as a result of those picks. But one thing that I do know for sure right now is that I believe in the Raptors development team. They've done wonderful jobs with a whole bunch of players in the past, and I don't think Scottie Barnes is going to be any different. Because if we're being honest with ourselves, I feel like it happens every year. Some random guy that I've never even heard of before gets called up from the Raptors 905 G League team to the Toronto Raptors, and he just starts balling out as a just everyday rotational guy. Like, I don't understand how their G League team is such a talent factory. It literally makes no sense. But anyway, back to Barnes, there's still a whole lot of Raptors fans that I see just being upset and complaining about the pick to this day. And yeah, at this point, it's a done deal. Just accept it, move on with it, and go support your players, because Scottie Barnes is a good player. Just earlier today, I was watching his first Summer League game. He was doing a little bit of everything, and I was really happy with how he played, and I hope that Raptors fans are feeling the same way. Anyway, if there is one thing that I'm pretty sure all Raptors fans can agree upon, is that they are all happy to actually be back in Toronto for the season. For those of you that forgot, because of the weird, COVID regulations that Canada had during the 2021 season, the Raptors ended up playing in Tampa Bay for the year, and that was just an absolute disaster for the franchise. And it's fully understandable too. They basically had no home court for an entire year of basketball. Nobody was having fun. Everyone was just having a terrible time. There's a ton of injuries. The entire NBA season just sucked for Toronto fans, the players, the front office, everyone involved. So now this offseason, they're moving back to Toronto. They traded Kyle Lowry. It seems like they're taking the avenue of trying to get a younger roster on the court to potentially just, build for the future, maybe make a play in a couple of years down the line. And I'm excited for the season. Throughout the entire Nick Nurse era, the Raptors have been known as a ultra-athletic team that specializes in high-pressure defense, and they basically just force other teams to make a whole bunch of mistakes. And when you're looking at the current roster that they have, with Goran Dragic being the only player that's over the age of 30, I think this is a pretty perfect fit of a roster for Nick Nurse to go out and compete with. If I had to guess right now, I'd assume the starting lineup on day 1 of the season is going to be looking something like Fred VanVleet, Trent Jr., OG Noonaby, Pascal Siakam, and Khem Birch, with each one of these guys being at worst an average defender. Plus, when you throw in guys like Scottie Barnes, Precious Achiuwa, Yuta Watanabe, and Chris Boucher off the bench, I really don't think that defense is going to be an issue at all for this team. The offense, on the other hand, is an entirely different story and should definitely be of concern. For starters, I fully believe in Pascal Siakam to remain around that 20-point per game mark and just stay slightly above it. He's been in or around that mark for the past 2 seasons now, and that was even despite him shooting less than 30% from 3 in the previous year. The only issue with Siakam offensively is that you just can't rely on him to be your number 1 scorer, just to necessarily be that guy who can go out and get you a bucket whenever you need it at the end of games. I know he had that stretch last year where he had multiple game-winning attempts that just ended up going really, really poorly for him. But the good news is that he has definitely excelled in the past being the second or third option on the team, and we even saw that in 2019 where they went on to win the championship. They had Kawhi as the number one, then Siakam and Kyle Lowry kind of just split as a 2A, 2B on the offensive side of the ball. So I imagine that if the Raptors are to become true contenders again, they'd want to find a way to get Pascal Siakam back into that role where he doesn't have to be the primary focus on offense, but instead he could be a supporting role and just give you 20 points a night and not have to worry about, late game shot creation or any of that stuff that he's just not that good at. And moving on, Fred VanVleet was another guy who put up decent stats, but overall was just a very, very inefficient scorer last season and for his whole career pretty much. On one hand, you could look to the fact that he shot 37% from three on one of the highest volumes in the entire NBA, which is really good. But on the other hand, you could also look to the fact that he shot below 40% from the field in general, which is very, very bad. And obviously you can continue to hope that he improves on this area of his game, but if you look back through his career numbers, there isn't a whole lot to be optimistic about. Because so far across his 5 seasons in the NBA, Fred VanVleet is yet to shoot above 43% for an entire season. So again, all we can really do at this point is hope and pray that he's able to just miraculously improve his shooting numbers. But one guy with a whole bunch of optimism surrounding himself offensively for this next season is OG Noonaby. He came into the NBA as a defensive specialist, but year by year has slowly improved his offensive game. Most notably last year, it was him becoming a better shot creator off the dribble. Over the past 2 seasons, he's worked to improve his three-point shot, averaging out at 39% in each of those last 2 seasons. But again, if he does want to take that major leap in this next year, he's going to have to focus more on that dribble drive aspect that he was starting to do more and more as last season went on. And if he is able to do that, I don't think it's outside of the realm of possibilities at all that he's able to become a 20-point per game scorer in the 2022 season, which again would be a huge, huge help to this team that's going to most likely struggle offensively. From there, both Goran Dragic and Malachi Flynn should provide some good scoring nights off of the bench. If Dragic can get healthy again, he's still good to give you somewhere around 13 to 15 points a night. And if you haven't heard yet, I'm here to tell y'all that Malachi Flynn is ready for a breakout season. During his rookie year last year, he struggled a whole lot. There was a lot of inconsistent minutes, and he didn't even have an offseason to get acclimated to the NBA. Overall, just a whole bunch of things not going his way. But this year, it's the exact opposite. He'll have a full, healthy offseason. He has the summer league that he's playing in right now, and again, if you guys didn't catch the game earlier, you missed a good one from Flynn. He scored 23 points on 80% true shooting from the field, including 4 of 5 shooting from 3. Plus, he should get plenty of opportunity once the regular season starts going. One, because the Kyle Lowry trade is going to open up a whole lot of minutes and opportunity for him. And 2, he's at worst the 4th best guard on this team. You've got Fred VanVleet and Gary Trent most likely taking these starting spots, and that's going to be him and Dragic off the bench, assuming they make no other acquisitions in the offseason. So at the end of the day, do not at all get me wrong, my expectations for the Raptors heading into this next season are still relatively low. A whole bunch of teams in the Eastern Conference got better, while the Toronto Raptors pretty much either stayed the same, might have even gotten a little bit worse. If I had to make a guess right now, I'd say that their ceiling probably caps out somewhere around the play-in spots in the Eastern Conference playoffs. With that being said though, I think there's still enough talent on this team that they're going to be a really, really fun team to watch as the season goes on. Plus, I think the path to becoming a contender again is pretty easy for them. They still have Pascal Siakam, Fred VanVleet, and OG Noonaby on contract for the next 3 years at least, and if they're able to add another superstar or just another all-star level, score first minded player to the roster in those 3 years, then I think this team could become a real serious threat in the Eastern Conference. Until we do get to that point though, I really hope that the Raptors just have some fun, especially with their lineups, because again, they just have a whole lot of athletic defenders on this team. I really hope Nick Nurse runs a Fred VanVleet, OG Noonaby, Pascal Siakam, Scotty Barnes, and Precious Achiuwa lineup as much as he can, because that'd be a really, really fun lineup to see. Obviously, just experimental purposes only. And if you've made it to this point in the video, then congratulations, you're a real one. Now, if you enjoyed this video, maybe think about hitting the subscribe button. Should be somewhere in this general direction. Or if you're not sure yet, maybe check out another video which should be in this general direction. Either way, thank you for watching.